Hello and welcome once again to a beautiful spring day. It is, what, about 80 degrees out here?
At least, and the sun probably a little bit more.
Yeah. Finally got a beautiful spring day. Lots of rain. How are the vineyards doing?
Vineyards are doing great. We got that rain about a week ago, and then it got warm, and these guys just shooting away.
Beautiful sun.
In the background, that is Merlot and Cabernet over there. And they're still pretty short, but further down the hill, there's the Chardonnay, and I have like half foot to a foot long shoots down there. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you for that update. So I am Jim Cargill, winemaker for House Family Vineyards, and this is
Jonathan Goodling, vineyard manager for House Family Vineyards.
We're back again for another segment. Tonight, what we're going to do, I hope you all have wine. Hope you all have House Family wine. But if you don't, not a worry. If you have, what I want you to do is get a glass of wine. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the tasting techniques that we use, but not all of them, because it can get really boring. Lots of time studying to do this. So, we're like hardcore athletes that train to taste this wine, smell the wine, sense all the, look for faults, look for, all kinds of stuff. But what we're going to focus on tonight is more the hedonistic style of tasting versus the critical style of tasting that we do. But we're going to share some of these critical tips with you so that you can taste these wines. So first thing I want to do is let's get these wines open. We're going to get to work here. So what we're tasting through tonight is we're going to taste through 4 wines. And I know some of you have some of these wines in place out there. If you don't worry. Open up what you want. Some House Family Vineyards wine, or something else that you've been wanting to pull out of your cellar. That works too. This will work on any quality wine. Let's be clear on that. So I've got a 2012 House Family Estate Cabernet, 2013, and a 2014. We go through, open these up, kind of compare and contrast a little bit. I know that I think Lisa Wilkin down in San Diego, North County somewhere. I think you've got one of these 13s in your hand. So hopefully you're opening that up and sharing it with us. A few other people down in the San Diego area pulled these in. I know some of you have the 2012. So, if you have that, and if you have our current release, which is 14, that's a great one to drink too. So I'm going to start opening these up. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do. There were some comments from last time that, some quirky tasting techniques that we did that I didn't really explain, and it may have been confusing, when we do that type of when we taste wine. So the first thing that I usually do is smell the cork. Why am I smelling the cork, Jonathan?
Well, because they smell really good. No, hopefully. It's in fact, sometimes the corks can have a bad smell, the very well-known cork taint. And so smelling the cork is the first step to assessing that. However, there's some cork taints which you don't smell that strong on the cork, and you'll smell them, however, in the wine. And so I do this awkward thing when, I open a bottle of wine, and then I always pour myself first a little sip, swirl it around, and test it before everybody else get it. And I'm considered rude, but that's exactly why I do that.
He just wants more wine. It's that's the opener's way of getting more of the good bottle. Notice he always opens the good bottles first. That's why I'm controlling the bottles today. So, but the cork taint. If you've ever smelled it, it smells like wet newspapers. It's called trichloroanisole, or TCA. And you've probably been through some sort of testing. I know I have, where you go in and you literally smell through a series of glasses, and it's down to parts per about 5 or 6. So that's something that you're looking for, and you want to see if, to make sure that it smells like a good cork. It doesn't smell like wet newspapers, grandpa's cellar, basement, that type of thing. And then you can taste it in the wine too. And if you've ever tasted it, it ruins the taste of the wine. You can't smell it, can't drink it. It just ruins it. So what we typically do, I'm going to take and I'm going to pour a little bit in each glass, and I'm not going to drink right away. I'll let you have that.
Thank you.
Trying to keep our social distancing going.
By the way, hi to Jim House and Matt from SoCal.
All right, Jim, you're on the line. Jim was with us in the early days, a lot of marketing, so glad he's on the line with us. So usually the first thing I do is when I go at the wines is I want to smell them, and I'm not necessarily going to drink them right away. This, and you can't sense this here, but this is probably not the best tasting environment because just as I do this, the wind comes up, and what is the wind going to do?
It carries away all the flavors. So yeah, I don't really like tasting wines outside that much, at least not when it's windy, because it really makes it harder to taste wines.
Smelling nice.
They do.
It's kind of fun to taste 3 wines in a row, 3 vintages, all from the same vineyard, and they're all pretty similar composition. The 2012 it's a 78% Cabernet. It's got 11% Merlot, 9% Cabernet Franc, and 2% Petit Verdot. And we're not going to test you on this at the end, but the 13 has 76% Cabernet Sauvignon, 14 Merlot, 3% Cabernet Franc, 7% Petit Verdot, and the 14 we did 79%, so it has the most cab of that. 9% Merlot, 5% Cabernet Franc, and 7% Petit Verdot. So we jumped in the Petit Verdot, it changes the complexity of the wine. If I knew this going in, I may be able to kind of tell which wine was which if I didn't know what was in the glass, just by smelling them, by kind of thinking, well, there's a little more Merlot, a little more of that. But that takes a lot of training to do that, to taste those individual varietals. But anyways, I wanted to ask you something. Can you taste color? Can you taste red?
Well, I used to suck on red crayons in kindergarten, but
I'm sure your teacher loved that one.
Right. Well, no, obviously you cannot taste the color, but by looking at the color, you can get. You often are at least lured in a certain direction of tasting. So there's tricks you can do. You can take a white wine and you put a little bit of red dye in it, and people will say it tastes like strawberries because we're so much focused on the color, even though there is no strawberry flavor in there or something like that. Yeah.
So it's funny thing you mentioned, strawberries, aromas, the different things that we're smelling in the wines. Aromas kind of open up this like whole new world of what's in there. So technically, you can't taste the color because it's just simply what your eye is seeing. It's a reflection of the light, correct?
Right.
But if you've done your job right and I do my job right, and we grow these fantastic grapes, he gets them to the peak of ripeness with all this color in the skins. The pulp is there. They're just at the peak of ripeness. We pick them at the right time. I get the most extraction out of it. I'm going to get the best color out of this wine, and that is an indication that I've gotten all of the flavor, into that glass from the vineyard. So that's how we work together to do that. So I guess you can kind of taste color.
In a way, you can taste color. The intensity tells you something about how ripe or those grapes were. Also, the color can tell you something about the age of the wine. So, if somebody of you has all 3 vintages in front of you, you'll be able to notice that the color hues change a little bit over time. And all the wines tend to go a little bit more towards the orangey. We're talking red wines here. And so that's an indication for an older, more mature wine. So there's also a flavor aspect to that color, if you will.
So the term for that is called bricking, and that kind of comes from turning more of a brick color from a deep red wine color. So it's, it kind of turns, you'll get rings around the wine, and that's okay because the fruit may fade in an older wine, and then you're going to taste more of the kind of earthy aspects of it. So, I prefer that. The tannins start to soften and they're more approachable. That's why we age wine. Wine is really a journey. It's a place to travel. I know Michael Dean's out there. He's having the 2017 Camel Hill Pinot Noir that we tasted last week. Thank you, Michael. And that's a journey because he's traveling in his glass to the Santa Cruz Mountains. He's down in the Los Angeles area drinking that wine. So he gets to, do a short trip, even though he's sheltered at home. So, it's a fun way to do it. Or we travel completely across the world. So it's just a great way to. That's the beauty of wine, and doing that.
Speaking about travel across the world, apparently my mother is joining us from Germany.
Right.
It's 2:00 in the morning there, so appreciate that she either stayed up or got up extra for that. Hi, Mom. Thanks.
Hello.
Sorry I didn't call last weekend, but next week.
He still talks all about you. He loves you. And I hope my mom is watching, because my daughter spent about a good probably 10, 15 minutes. I had to walk away from the conversation. So, Mom, I hope you're out there on Instagram, probably one of the newest Instagram people out there. She's now signed up. And I hope you're able to see me on Instagram, and Jonathan. So I hope you made it on there. Hi, Shelly. See you're watching too. Oak Tree Winery, thank you for joining us. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about the environment. We've got this breeze coming through. It can make it challenging. So you really want to be, kind of back to these wines, you want to be in a kind of a draft-free environment, but you also want to be in an environment probably doesn't have a lot of fragrance too.
Right,
That
exactly.
could be a challenge.
So if you have like, a lot of like perfume or aftershave, or there's some hand soaps, or now the hand sanitizers, which are really strongly scented, and then you pick up the glass, bring it to your nose, and all you smell is whatever you washed your hands with, or if it's the perfume or aftershave. That is something you personally don't smell that much, because you have it all around you, and it doesn't really affect your tasting, but it might affect the guy or girl tasting next to you. And so that is also something to consider.
Yeah, and so a lot of times when we're doing technical tastings, we're winemakers, and in industry we're very cognizant of that, and we don't put on a lot of that anyways. Well, I don't put a lot of that on anyways, but sometimes, never mind.
I've been working since 7 o'clock out here in the sun, so it's sweaty, so whatever.
Yes. So yeah, that's something that you probably want to avoid, going in there, a lot of aromas and that type of thing. So the tasting environment. But another thing that I find really, really appropriate, and this is something you can try at home, this is something you can try immediately, is the shape of the glass. And we've done these, the industry, they do these tasting trials. These are Riedel glasses. It's not a plug for Riedel. It just happens to be the brand. We went through extensive testing for all of our wines to pick the best shape to taste our wines, because you really kind of have one wine in the tasting room. And we use that. It's kind of a general purpose shape, and you'll notice it's called a Grand Bordeaux glass, and it's a Bordeaux style glass. But these have a similar style bulb, but they really work well for Chardonnays and Pinot. This is a Pinot shaped glass. You'll notice kind of the tulip shape. I don't know, thinking you guys can see these kind of a different shape. It's kind of got these straight sides. You're probably wondering why the different shapes. That's a Chardonnay glass, on there, a little bit, these kind of really angular sides here. What each one of these glasses do is they deliver the aromatics to a proper location on your nose. When you drink the wine, it delivers it to a proper location on your tongue. They've been scientifically designed to deliver the flavors of, say, a Cabernet, a Chardonnay, or a Pinot Noir, Burgundy, to that proper spot. They make every varietal of glass you could imagine, and it's absolutely amazing. So you could try something like this at home. I mean, there's all kinds of glass shapes that
there is also like the wrong kind of glass shapes.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not. I mean, these are all wine glasses, and they will all work well enough for wines. I also usually, sometimes get asked by customers, do I have to get all 10 different glasses for all 10 different varieties? And I always say, like, they really want to sell these glasses. So
absolutely.
If you have a good, as I call it, unisex glass, that works for most wines too. But all wine glasses will have in common that the opening, the mouth, is a little bit tighter than the belly section, if you will. And so it really concentrates the aromas and flavors coming up to your nose. And as long as you have a glass which is sort of shaped like that, you're fine. But there are, if you happen to have a martini glass at home, this shape, pour some wine into that, the same wine you're having in your wine glass, and then compare the two, smell them. You'll be surprised. You will hardly smell anything in this martini glass, because it really lets all the flavors escape. And so it feels like it's two different wines. And that can be, so there can be glasses which are wrong. Or, my grandmother used to have these grandma, these like old-fashioned sort of like open mouth glasses, and they're also kind of useless for wine tasting. So, yeah.
One hit of the elbow and it's all gone. So if you have a martini glass, give that a try. If you have a plastic kids cup, give that a try. That's one of the things that we would do in a wine tasting is put the same wine literally in a different glass after the other. You'd bet good money that they were all different wines. So I've got a question coming in from Michael asking if the wines are a blend. These wines are actually blends. So they're Bordeaux style blends, meaning that I've taken Cabernet, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet Franc, all grown here in our vineyards. And those are blended in certain concentrations. We do a blending trial where we sit down with the base wines and we work back and forth and add different amounts to get the best blend of the wine. Because, Cabernet, I'll kind of get into this later, what makes a quality wine. Cabernet, to me, really needs some helping components. It's really tough to get do a wine that's a single varietal, unless it's like a Pinot Noir, a Chardonnay can handle being a single varietal. But what ends up happening with Cabernet, it's such a muscular grape that it's very hard to pull that off and have it be complementary. It's kind of like listening to somebody play the saxophone all night long. Well, you may like that instrument, but it's nice if there's a lead singer and a bass and a guitar and a few other players in the band. That's what a blend does. So it's they all work together in harmony to really give you this beautiful experience all the way through the glass and the tasting experience. So that's what we're looking for. Some of the things that we do, there's a lot of literature out there. We can send out some links later. These aroma wheels. Ann Noble from UC Davis. She's got this famous aroma wheel. I've got a picture of it. It's gonna be hard to show, but it's kind of a cool wheel. Trying to get as close in. You won't be able to read these, but it really talks about all the different flavors of wines and that can be in there. And a lot of them, they're just terms and their vocabulary that you're going to need to learn. And that's something that I do when I go out. I'm a chef by trade as well. But when I go to farmers markets, some of my favorite places to go, always picking things up and smelling them, kind of like a monkey. And, it's like I'm smelling all the different lemons, the local produce. I want to smell those, and it helps develop my vocabulary so that I can, I can identify that, kind of like your crayon that you used to eat. I hope you stop eating those, but I have a couple boxes if you still like them. But, but there's some great flavors, regional that I've experienced growing up. What are some of the, flavors that you might not experience here that you experience in Germany
That's a good question. So one thing I often use descriptor for Sauvignon Blancs when I hosted wine tastings in Germany is like fresh cut nettles. Like the stinging nettle is very predominant, grows everywhere in Germany, and it has a very distinctive flavor or smell. You can make salad from them too. You can make a salad of them or a soup. When they cook, then they're fine. But they have a very distinctive flavor when they're freshly cut, and you find that often in Sauv Blancs. And but here, at least here in California, I haven't seen that much stinging nettles. Maybe on the East Coast there are more, and so people don't have that reference. It's the same thing with elderflower. There are elder bushes here, but they don't smell quite the way. There must be a little bit of different variety which we have in Europe, and they have a much stronger smell. And so these are two flavors or two smells in the environment, which I also often find in wines, which I miss here. I don't find them here.
Yeah, we do have some stinging nettles, but you'll find them kind of in weird pockets, but they're not the grasses and stuff. So yeah, we tend to describe them more as different grapefruits and more common stuff.
It may also be that the Sauv Blancs we have over there have a little bit. It's cooler there, so they have different aromas there. But that's something I, in general, it's a smell I miss, and I don't get it here. Good.
So aromas are a great thing, and then profile is something that I do when I taste a wine. So we're gonna taste these wines. I hope you're drinking at home. And there's a point at which it's ready to drink. It just
he does that. I've been so thirsty, and I was staring at these wines, and he's like going on and on and on. Anyway, so
all right, so let's get drinking. So let's give these wines a taste.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Finally.
So we're starting off with the 2012. It's got, to me, it's just got some really good earthy characteristics.
Yeah, a lot of leather.
Yeah, saddle leather.
Old, nice leather.
Has dry sage. I'm getting to this kind of, herbs.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really deep complex. It's big wine.
Yeah.
It's still well within its drinking window, even though it's a library wine. Back in there, but. Still drinking well, for sure. I've got to get some like clover honey coming in, so some of the clover grasses, finished. So I said I graph a wine when I drink it. So it's just something strange, quirky, whatever you want to call it, that I do. When a wine goes in my mouth, I want it to. A quality wine should excite me. It should peak. This graph should go way up, and then it's going to drop a little bit, and then I want it to come back. I want it to go away. If you take a simple wine, and I'm not going to pick on any brand in particular, but you see them in the grocery store. They may come in something that's more square than that, or other labels.
We all know we're talking about. So,
anyways, they tend to be they're simple. They're I can look at the wine and say, well, it's quality in that it doesn't have any faults. It doesn't have any winemaking faults. It was produced in a sanitary method, but it's just simple. It doesn't have anything really good about it. It's not very exciting. And I may or may not be able to taste the varietal, tell what it is. This I can definitely tell it's Cabernet. If you put it in front of me, I'd say, yeah, it's Cabernet. It's distinctive. But some of those other wines, they may be red. So could be like eating crayons. I don't know. All right.
By the way, you also notice us swirling the wine around in the glass. That is also to wet a bigger surface and get more evaporation, and thus more flavors, more aromas into the air, so they actually can reach your nose. And another thing which you maybe saw me doing earlier is if a wine is very muted, you can even do this, so it accumulates a little bit, and then you get more, particularly when it's a little bit windy like here, that can help.
Challenging.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to be careful of is too warm of temperature, because if it's too hot, a wine, you'll start volatilizing, the alcohols, a lot of the esters in the wine.
It becomes very unpleasant in the nose. The alcohol starts to sting in the nose. And, people often say there's this rule of thumb, red wine's always at room temperature. Yes, but, that was back in the day when people lived in old stone castles without central heating. So it's really a little bit cooler than room temperature.
Yeah, our room right now is 80 degrees, and that would be too warm for this wine. I mean, we've kept these are nice and cool. So they're still at the right temperature. Otherwise, that alcohol starts coming out, and it becomes unbalanced, and that's not a fault of the winemaking. It's a fault of the environment that you're drinking in. So again, something to look for when you're doing that wine. So I get this wine remarkably different. Obviously two different vintages.
But it's just a year in between, right?
Year in between. The blends. You got 78% cab here. I've got 76% cab here, plus the other blending components. But a huge amount of red fruit in this wine. Just big. Lisa, are you getting that? Lisa, where are you at? Down North County. I hope you're enjoying that wine. Jesse Montenegro, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I see you're out there too. And Lisa, I do see that you opened the cab. Thank you so much. So, and you know what? If you're drinking these wines, Lisa, chime in. Let us know what you're drinking. This is
exactly. Anybody who is watching us, we hate doing that because we've tasted those wines many times before, and have roughly an idea what they smell and taste like. Sometimes that can also be a risk because we're so sort of we have the blinders on. It's okay, that's our cab, our essay cab, so it will have X, Y, Z. But it's very interesting to hear from other people who are not that familiar with the wines what they smell and taste. So don't buy, nobody can see you. We not necessarily have to tell who's chipped in with what. But if you have something you can smell or taste, an association, just post it, and it would be interesting to see what people experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Because your nose is not my nose, and it's not his nose.
Certainly not.
There's things that you can smell that I can't smell, and there's things that I probably trained myself to smell that I may be able to identify, but I can't smell everything. We're all built different, and some people will smell something that I may never smell. My brother-in-law is, he can smell Brett a mile away. So Brettanomyces, that's a wine fault, but to a certain extent, a lot of European wines, it's not. And so a little bit of Brett, to me, Brett smells like a barnyard. And since I grew up around horses and livestock, it's a familiar smell to me. And so I don't mind a little bit of it in the right amount. Too much, it's off-putting. He can't stand it at all because he smells it at just a much greater degree than I do. So, if I'm ever in question, I can always ask him, how's the Brett in this wine? So he's kind of my test dog, my bloodhound. So
right.
All right, let's go on to the 14. Wind is killing me out here. Wow. That's a lot of dark fruit in that one.
Yeah. And get a lot of blueberries. A little bit of it's another thing I miss. It's like blue. We have these blue plums in Germany, but they're very small. We call them Zwetschgen, and
what are they?
Zwetschgens. They're
Zwetschgens.
tiny little blue plums, and they're very, very aromatic. And yeah, get something like that here.
This one is probably, to me, the most Bordelaise in style. So
what does that mean, Jim?
All right, you're going to ask me.
If you throw with those terms around here.
Well, yeah. So all the wines are made in a Bordeaux style. So the blends are all very classic style blends. I mean, we have all the classic grapes: the Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. 4 classic blending varietals from Bordeaux. We put those all together. Some California vineyards, they'll go 100%. Napa wines tend to be, they just overwork the wines for my taste. I like the wines more reserved and reach for them a little bit more. So this is definitely California fruit. That's what we have here. That's what we're growing, obviously, right here in the heart of California. But done in an old world style. So, we talked about last week, native. There I go, using that term. So spontaneous inoculations, but using native yeast, that are just, local around here, minimal intervention in the wine, letting, his grapes and the vineyards show themselves. So
trying not to get in the way of the wine, of the grape.
Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
So if you're enjoying it in your glass, I did my job right. So did he. Hey, Larry. So part of the House family, Larry Hexel. What are you drinking? I don't know. He says chug it. You're probably drinking a Molson, aren't you? All right, so this this is probably the biggest of all 4 of the wines. They're all very. It's a tight knit group, but if I was going to pair these wines, I'm going to say, boy, I'm going to go on the 12. I'm going to go with a dry rubbed ribeye with some sage, kosher salt, and a lot of pepper. That would be a ribeye. The 13, I'm going to go hamburger. I'm going to go a good 80-20 hamburger, brioche bun, Tillamook cheddar, some heirloom tomatoes. And I'm just going to go old school because it's got all that. It's got that nice acid. It's got that berry that I think would really kind of work well. The 14, I think I'm going to go wild, some venison or some big game, and do it with maybe what were your plums?
The Zwetschgens.
Maybe we get some of those and we take those and cook those down into a nice jus.
Oh, that's very good.
Root vegetables.
Yeah.
That would be. I think that'd be killer with all 4 of those.
And if we have any hunters down out there, you know,
Come on down.
I have a couple of deers here in the vineyard which need attention, shall we say?
All right. So
Also, you know, he always does that. Now I'm super hungry, and you guys probably too. And I think all we have is a little bit of stale bread in the kitchen here, because you know. Anyways,
so it looks like Lisa, you're getting the blackberries and some nice gentle aroma of blackberries. That's
Wow.
awesome.
yeah,
That's I mean, I'm getting the same things in there. We got Cass. You're on the 2012. You got berries as well. Both those wines, you know, definitely have that component. So
dark berry
Yeah.
fruit,
yeah,
really ripe.
definitely.
Yeah, I agree too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of aromas, they kind of prompted me to do this, you know, a little bit of testing. So one of the things we do in our training is we do blind taste testings, and so we'll do kind of we'll do what's called a duo trio, where we put two of the same wines, and and we do 9 wines, and we have to identify which is the odd one out in the different wines, and so we'll do that. I'm not going to do that today. But one of the fun tools we have some black wine glasses, and those are awesome because Jonathan was saying it hides the color of the wine, and so you can't see what's in them. So they have 4 wines, and they agreed to pour our wines, my wine, so I'll know what these are.
I mean, I can look through them into the sun. I don't even see the sun, so they're really, really dark. That, as we said, completely eliminates the color impression, and so can't tell you talk so loud, but so we're gonna do two wines. In 2 glasses we do the same wine and see whether you can figure that out. So we have Syrah here in the first one. And then let's see, there's Sauv Blanc, second. And you might think that it's super easy to identify a white wine, distinguish between a white wine and a red wine in black glasses. But it's actually, for many people, it's surprisingly difficult to tell them apart if they cannot see the color. And so if you have a chance, order some black glasses. I guess we sell them also in the tasting room. And so put the same wine, the Syrah, in the last glass too. Thank you, Aaron. Hey, Jim, we're good.
All right.
You've been all the way down on the bottom of
I was
block 3,
checking
right?
out the vineyard. We got some nice little buds out there. It's looking really pretty.
Did you pull some weeds?
I did.
Yeah, I can bring them back.
I didn't pull too many.
All right.
I don't want to intrude too much. All right. So 4 wines. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, and no color. They're all black.
Yeah.
Can't see anything. That's Sauv Blanc. I'm going with, that's Sauv Blanc.
That would be right.
Back. That's Pinot.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm gonna stick with Pinot now.
But we have like what, 3 different Pinots?
Yes. Well, 4 technically.
So which one would it be?
Okay, come on.
Come on, you making these?
Right. These, I know, they're all my children, and now you want me to recognize them in a photo of like Where's Waldo? Can't even see what they're wearing. I got to listen to them.
Well,
That's
that might be obviously an interesting test
Okay.
too. You know, can you identify your children by smell?
I can get them all up here. Oh man, All right, I'm eliminating these. That's Sauv Blanc, definitely Sauv Blanc. That's
All right.
Sauv Blanc. Do I get that one?
He
All right,
got
I
that
get
right.
one. All right, and that's Pinot Noir, classic. I'm smelling the greenness on it. Okay, so here's another technique that I got to use. I'm starting to get fatigue, and what that means, like I'm a runner, I'm getting tired. I need to clear my palate, so I smell something that's familiar to me. My sleeve, probably not under my arm at this point in the day, but I
Yeah,
typically
don't do that.
smell my arm, so that you'll often see people when they do that, do a smell of their arm because it resets your nose and clears your nose back out. So I'm gonna have to go to some old school techniques here. These are killing me on live TV here, huh?
It's kind of like the reverse of Corona sneezing, right? Where you
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna stick with so it's Pinot Noir, but that's it's either Camel Hill or Monterey. But all right. It's not Saltonstall and it's not Galley. I'll tell you that.
So
I'm gonna
either, either Camel Hill or Kevin.
Yeah, the Kevin Olson Vineyard. Either one. There are Monterey. So
What did we get, Aaron? Which one did we had?
Olson.
We had the Olson. Okay.
All right. This is Syrah. Smelling Syrah. There. I was gonna go Olson. A little greener.
Yeah.
My head.
Well, you got it down pretty well, but
These are killing me.
What? What is the fourth wine?
Fourth wine
The fourth wine.
is the same as the first.
What? No way.
There's no difference. Now, did you do that? Did you do that to me?
I mean, I was just handed bottles, Well, yes, they're the same. That's actually something, we had to do in high.
See what I work with? I mean, how unfair is that?
You got to stay alert all the time, right?
All right.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for keeping me on my toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Question everything, right?
Yep. So, and that is one of the tests that we do. Thank you for putting me through this live.
That's if that was it's a very common test with like 3 glasses, and you will know it's called a triangular test, where you have 3 glasses, 2 will be the same, 1 is different, and then you have to figure out what is the different one. And so this was a little bit more complicated with like 4, but
yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, thank you for doing that. That was just
well, next week we're gonna do like the four different Pinots in the black glasses, and I see what that happens.
So my daughter and I were having this conversation last night, and she asked me, what makes a quality wine? And to me, what makes a quality wine is one that's honestly a very good conversation. So we've all come across people that we'd like to talk to all night long. And you may meet them someplace and they just start talking, and they're just a depth of knowledge. They may be well educated, or you just have a very interesting depth of experience in their life. And that to me is what a quality wine should taste like. It's something that you literally want to spend the evening with. That it's just got so much complexity. It talks to you. It works well with your environment. It's the right wine for the food. For the temperature, the atmosphere.
It does also change over the course of an evening or a dinner or whatever. I mean, these 3 wines here, you've probably seen me going back and smelling them every now and then, and they have changed already. Wines like this change slowly, so if we leave them, over the course of an evening, a couple of hours, every glass will be a little bit different, and this sort of metamorphosis is really, really fascinating to see how the wine opens up or maybe closes a little bit, shows you something new, and to reacting with a little bit of oxygen, breathing. But to a degree, it's also you. There's a lot of factors going into how you perceive the wine. So you notice something you didn't notice before because you just had a glass of water or you took a bite of that dry rubbed steak. Damn it.
You're just in tune with these wines, that we've shared something with you that you can just get in touch with the wines. You can smell the wines at a little deeper level. One thing you don't want to do is taste wines like we do, because it's work. I got a buddy of mine. He's a builder, and he can't walk into a building. Well, you're probably out there. He walks into a building and complains about the architect, the builder, and why he did all this stuff. When I drink wine, I'm always analyzing. I'm talking about this. So it's just this is work, but it should be hedonistic. It should be very enjoyable. But it does really experience those wines and just enjoy them at a deeper degree. So a couple questions. My brother-in-law Rush, hey Rush, and I hope Sarah, Rachel, Marie, my sister are all out there, said, how long would you wait to drink the wine after opening? Well, that really depends on the type of day you've had. And it does depend on the wine a little bit, but I typically open a wine, the bigger the wine, the longer I may wait. Chardonnay, I may drink, fairly quickly, after opening. I may taste it right away, and I come back and taste it again a couple times. And there's an evolution of the wine, as Jonathan was saying, and there's a sweet spot in when you actually want to drink that wine. So that's what I'm kind of looking for in the evening.
Yeah.
And it's a journey.
One rule of thumb is, in white wines, it's usually not quite that important. I mean, I'm from Germany. I drank a lot of very old aged Rieslings, and that can sometimes be interesting to decant those too and give them some time. But when we talking red wines, a rule of thumb is, if they're younger, sort of like in the beginning of the window where you want to start drinking them, you may want to wait a little bit longer. You open them earlier, you decant them, let them breathe a little bit longer. Whereas if the wine has been stored for a long time and is very, very ripe, it's an old vintage, then it probably will not a lot of breathing time before you can drink it, because it has done its journey in the bottle. And so you may give it a couple of minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but probably not quite as long as a young red wine.
So we had a question out there about the size of the barrel, if that matters. Absolutely. So the barrel is all about the surface contact on the wine. And so the larger the barrel, the less surface contact, the oak impact you're going to have based on the ratio of the volume of wine. So these barrels that are in front, they're you probably can't quite see them all that well, but they're different shapes. They are a little bit bigger. This one here is 265 liters. This is 228 liters. They're all Burgundy style barrels, so they're a little bit bigger and rounder versus the Bordeaux barrels, which are a little bigger and taller, and they're only 225 liters. Not that you needed to know that kind of technicality, but it does matter the oak impact on the barrel. If you had a barrel, so these are essentially, let's call them 60 gallons. They do make some 30-gallon barrels. If you put that wine in a 30-gallon barrel, it's going to age. It's going to get that oak impact is going to have a much greater impact in a shorter period of time. We typically don't go anything smaller than these. We actually have some really big 500-liter barrels that are very gentle, used for the Chardonnay. We have some 300-liter ones that give more lees contact, that do different things with the wine. So they're all tools that I can use in the cellar to make the wine in the style that I want to achieve based on the flavor profile of the grapes.
Yeah. And then barrels can get even bigger.
Oh, huge.
So back when I was still working in Germany, we had like 3,000-liter barrels, wooden barrels.
Crawl inside.
And you crawl inside these barrels to clean them. And these are not at all meant to give any oak flavor to the wine. You use them for decades, and so they don't really give any taste to the wine. They were, that was the vessel you had before stainless steel tanks, and many wineries still using them. Many wineries going back to them because they feel like, though they don't impart any oak flavors to the wine, they will allow the wine to breathe some, so you get some aeration already during the winemaking process. And so, particularly for red wines and for certain white wines too, they just mature nicer, and that's why some wineries actually going back and starting to use barrels like that again. And it's also fascinating, you know, being inside a wine barrel there's not a lot of people who have done that. The inside is like completely covered with titrates, the crystals.
Yep.
And so it's wet and cold, but it looks like a diamond cave. It's very, very beautiful.
Fun stuff. So people often ask if the shape of the glass matters, and I say the shape of the glass does matter. So when you have this, this is the perfect shape, and so
Well, let me help you.
Well, I was going to have a glass of wine, and so I always choose something like this if I find it on the table, because a glass of wine like this, I'm just going to have a glass of wine. Okay, so this is my favorite glass, and you'll see why, because
you
just going to have one glass tonight. This thing holds obviously a full bottle of wine and then some, so it's pretty incredible glass, this Grand Bordeaux. So that's good. But
I don't know about you, but
I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, I mean,
time to sign off here.
That looks kind of a little bit too much for me. So I think I'm going for something else now.
So you know what? We're at the end of our workday, and I just want to shout out to Lloyd, Jennifer, Cass. They grabbed the 2012 this week. They're getting some subtle licorice notes in there. Awesome. Got the same thing. Next week, really fun. We're going to have the pizza oven out. We've got pizza kits available. We're going to be doing our pepperoni pizza, our chicken burrata pizza. We can put kits together for you for pickup, or we can arrange delivery. And we're going to be doing that with our two Coast View vineyard wines. So our Coast View Chardonnay and Coast View Syrah, both those pair really well. So Jonathan and I are going to be doing a little cooking demonstration, drinking some wine, showing you how to cook pizza. If you guys have that pizza in your house and those kits, you can work right along with us, show you how to roll the dough out, and put it all out there. So should be super fun. Yeah. Obviously, our website, housefamilyvineyards.com, is where you can get it.
Another thing is, so many people commented on when we talked a little bit more about the cover crops last week. So if you guys have questions or input what we should show in a future video, just text us, comment, and maybe we can come up with something what answers more questions. And so if you have suggestions, then let us know. But
so just one last question here is asking about our Malbec. So not many of you know about our Malbec program down in Argentina. Unfortunately, I should be in Argentina right now looking over the harvest. So we're releasing our, so Juan Pablo, if you're out there, he and I talked today. Hey, Juan. He and I are going to do a throwdown cooking contest from Argentina and here, if we can make this work technologically. We'll talk about the Malbecs, and we'll probably release that mid-May as those wines settle in. But we're gonna do some open fire cooking, some steaks. We'll get you those steaks that I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Maybe get that ribeye.
So wait, I
out
have
there.
to wait until mid-May to get that steak.
Oh, I may cook for you soon. Come on, stop complaining. Anyway, so we'll probably release that mid-May sometime as it gets ready. That'll be one of our segments. But next week, Syrah, Chardonnay, pizza. You'll see us right here at 5 o'clock. With that, all right, talked a little bit more about glassware. So the perfect glassware for us. So at the end of the day, while we do this for work all day, it's a lot of work. This is a Riedel IPA glass. I love IPAs.
Yeah, and this is a Hefeweizen glass. And the trouble with that Hefeweizen is in Germany, Hefeweizen comes in half-liter bottles, so it will actually fill that glass. So it's always.
But here it doesn't. So he only gets one beer.
Anyways,
but it's quitting time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you for joining us. Cheers out there.
Cheers.
Cheers. We're out of here.